Imagine you're standing in a gallery and you're looking at a canvas that makes your eyes, like, physically unable to rest.
Oh, yeah. A really demanding piece.
Right, and not because it's depicting some horrifying scene or anything, but because the artist has essentially, well, weaponized color and line to basically hack your brain's visual processing.
Yep. It's a very real phenomenon.
Yeah, you're looking at a flat surface, yet your optical nerve is just struggling to reconcile what it's seeing. It creates this literal vibrating tension right in your head.
It totally forces a physiological response before your cognitive brain even has a chance to, catch up and ask, wait, what is this a picture of?
Exactly.
You're just dealing with visual overload from the exact moment you make eye contact with the piece.
And that biological visual tension is really the foundation for our deep dive today.
I'm really excited for this one.
Same. We're taking this single, intensely complex artwork. It's a painting by Anupam Gupta, who goes by Much Chew, and it's titled Crimson Silhouette in Monochromatic Flow.
Such a great title, too.
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
And our mission today is to take that intense visual language and translate it into an auditory exploration for you.
Which is, frankly, a brilliant exercise. Yeah. Because decoding a piece of highly abstract, really textured art is essentially a stress test for our pattern recognition systems. Yeah. It just forces us to slow down our perception.
And for you listening, I mean, this isn't just an art critique. Learning how to process an image like this, how to find the signal buried inside all that overwhelming noise, how to understand what friction actually looks like, it's a cognitive tool.
Absolutely.
It's the exact same mental machinery you use to, read the subtext at a really tense meeting or just filter through the daily barrage of information overload we all get.
Right, the doom scrolling and all that.
Yeah, exactly. We're training the brain to look past the immediate chaos and identify the underlying architecture.
And, well, to understand that architecture, we really have to start with the environment the artist has built here. Right, the title mentions a monochromatic flow. And that flow just dominates the entire background, plus the whole right side of the canvas.
It does. And calling it a background almost feels, I don't know, too passive.
How so?
Well, if you split this canvas in your mind, the vast majority of the space is consumed by these stark, undulating, vertical black and white lines.
Yeah, they're very aggressive.
Right. And they aren't rigid or geometric at all. They mimic organic matter. Like, to my eye, they look like a deeply grooved, highly magnified piece of coarse wood grain.
Oh, I can see that.
Or maybe a topographical map of a dangerously steep canyon just dropping off into nothing. It creates this incredibly oppressive sense of downward motion.
The comparison to wood grain or topography is crucial, actually. Yeah, because both of those things are visual records of time and environmental stress. I mean, tree rings show years of drought or plenty, right? And topographical lines show centuries of erosion. By rendering these lines in pure black and white, the artist is completely stripping away the emotional warmth that color normally provides.
Wow, yeah.
So what you're left with is an environment that is just entirely sterile. It's totally indifferent to whatever is in it.
It kind of feels like the visual equivalent of white noise.
That's a great way to put it.
When I look at that black and white background, I honestly hear the harsh, aggressive static of an old analog television set.
Huh?
When it's tuned to a dead channel.
Oh, yeah. Snow.
Yes, just a relentless hiss. And smack in the middle of this static is our subject. It's this massive, highly saturated red shape.
The crimson silhouette.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the question that immediately jumps to my mind is about agency.
Okay.
When you have this vibrant entity surrounded by this oppressive visual noise, is the entity trapped inside the static, or is it like actively pushing against the flow?
Well, the visual mechanics of the painting actually answer that question for us.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but to understand how, we have to look at how our eyes process contrast.
Yeah, lay it on me.
So our retinas use different photoreceptor cells, right? Rods handle black, white, and low light vision.
Right.
While cones handle bright, saturated colors. So by slamming pure graphic monochrome right up against a highly saturated crimson, the artist is literally forcing your rods and cones to compete for dominance.
Wait, really? It's a biological fight?
Exactly. It's a phenomenon in color theory known as simultaneous contrast. The background is trying to recede, but the visual noise is so loud, it just keeps pulling your focus away from the center.
Wow. So the vibration I feel looking at it isn't just a metaphor.
Nope.
It's my eyes physically struggling to process two entirely different visual signals at the exact same time.
Precisely. And this leads right back to your question about agency. If you look at the right edge of the red silhouette where the crimson actually meets the black and white static, the flow doesn't just sit behind the red shape like wallpaper.
No, it definitely interacts.
Right. The black and white lines actively bend and contour around the right-facing edge of the crimson subject.
Oh, wow. I see it. So the static is actually carving into the figure.
Mm-hmm.
The environment is shaping the entity itself.
Yes, it's an active system of friction. The flow is an external force, and the specific jagged contours of the crimson silhouette, they only exist because of the pressure being applied by that environment.
That's wild.
Right. If you remove the monochromatic flow, the red shape just loses its definition. The entity is defined by what it is resisting.
That is just a staggering way to think about identity.
It really is.
So we are defined by the static we are pushing against. But, that raises another issue. If the environment is shaping the figure, we have to look really closely at the figure itself to see, well, what kind of toll that friction is taking.
Definitely.
Because the edge of that red mass, the part facing directly into the flow, it isn't just some random squiggle.
No. And your brain won't allow it to be just a random squiggle either.
Right. The right edge vaguely forms a human profile. There is a distinct slope of a forehead, a protrusion that suggests a nose, and then a cutback for a jawline. And it's facing right, looking directly into the heaviest part of that monochromatic flow.
This is where we encounter the psychological phenomenon of pareidolia.
Pareidolia?
Yeah, it's that evolutionary quirk in human cognition that makes us see faces in the clouds or, a man in the moon.
Oh, right, finding patterns.
Exactly. Our brains are basically hardwired to recognize human forms as a survival mechanism, and the artist totally knows this.
So they're playing with us.
Oh, for sure. By giving this abstract red mass just enough anatomical suggestion on its leading edge, the painting stops being just an experiment in color theory.
It becomes a person.
Right. It suddenly becomes a character study. We instantly project humanity and therefore vulnerability onto this shape.
Vulnerability is an interesting word there because the colors used for this silhouette suggest something incredibly intense.
They're very...
Yeah, it's not a flat red. It traces from this deep, bruised, almost brick red at the top of the head, and as you move down the canvas, it shifts into a bright, almost blinding, fiery orange-yellow.
Yeah, a massive gradient.
My immediate thought is a thermal camera. It looks exactly like a thermal scan of a
person standing in a sub-zero blizzard.
Yes, exactly. You just see heat radiating outward from the core.
The thermal imaging analogy really highlights the spatial manipulation happening here, too.
How do you mean?
Well, in visual perception, warm colors, your reds, oranges, yellows, they appear to advance toward the viewer. While cool or neutral colors, like the black and white background, they appear to recede.
Okay, that makes sense.
So the artist is using this temperature gradient to give the silhouette a burning, vital energy. It is loudly, aggressively alive. But you mentioned vulnerability, and I think that really comes through in the materiality of the piece.
Oh, yes, the materiality. The artist hasn't applied the paint in a smooth, glossy, perfect layer at all.
Not even close.
No. You can clearly see the rough physical texture of the canvas weave pushing right up through the red and orange pigment.
It's very textured.
It gives the whole entity a raw, exposed, tactile feel.
Yeah.
But I'm honestly torn on how to interpret that.
Why is that?
Well, does that visible canvas texture make the figure look strong and enduring? Or does it make it look fragile? Like we're seeing its skeletal structure underneath or something?
I think it forces a reconciliation of both concepts, actually.
Really, both?
Yeah. Think about classical art. The goal was often to completely hide the canvas, to create an illusion so perfect you forget you're looking at a painted object.
Right, like a window into another world.
Exactly. But by deliberately letting the rough texture of the cloth show through, the artist basically breaks the fourth wall.
I see.
It reveals the reality of the medium. The figure isn't a flawless illusion, it's a physical object existing under strain. It looks weathered, it looks like it has been sanded down by all that static.
It's surviving, but it's not untouched.
Definitely not.
And you can really see that it's not untouched when you start scanning the internal space of that red and orange silhouette. Because, once your eyes adjust to the heat of those colors, you realize the figure is covered in very deliberate, almost cryptic markings.
Yes.
It's carrying luggage, so to speak.
The markings are the narrative engine of the piece, I'd say. They transform the silhouette from just a mere presence into a full history.
Let's trace that history then, starting near the top of the head. Up in that deep, bruised red area, there is a distinct circle outlined in dark pigment.
Very prominent.
Right. And given the pareidolia we talked about, our brains looking for a face, that circle sits exactly where an eye or a brain would be.
Yeah.
I mean, some people might read it as a sun or a moon, but in the context of a profile, it feels like a center of consciousness to me.
It absolutely acts as an anchor. In an image composed entirely of flowing vertical lines and these gradient color fields, a closed geometric shape like a circle just arrests the eye.
It gives you somewhere to look.
Right. It gives the silhouette a focal point of awareness. It tells the viewer, hey, this entity isn't just reacting blindly to the flow, it is perceiving it.
But that perception seems pretty painful, honestly, because right below that circle, sweeping across the forehead area, is a band of jagged, stippled marks.
Ah, yes.
It's black, white, and red all mashed together. It's almost like the black and white static from the outside environment has actually penetrated the boundary of the figure itself.
That is a profound way to read it. If the outside flow is environmental pressure or noise, that stippled band suggests the noise has internalized.
Internalized noise, yeah.
It's cognitive load. The static isn't just pushing against the skin of the silhouette anymore. It has entered the psyche.
And that internalized static leads right into what I find to be, honestly, the most violent part of the painting.
The cut.
Yes. Further down, there's this stark, diagonal white line cutting horizontally across the middle of the figure. It physically severs the deep red top section from the bright orange bottom section.
It's very jarring.
And below that, in the orange heat, there are 3 or 4 vertical white scratch-like lines. They look exactly like tally marks.
Mm-hmm.
But I keep getting hung up on that diagonal white line. It looks like a cracked screen on a phone, or like a deep laceration. Are we looking at a fundamentally broken entity here?
To really understand that severance, we need to consider the physical technique involved in making it.
Okay.
Because those white lines, the diagonal cut and the vertical tally marks, they don't look gently brushed on at all. They appear to be instances of sgraffito.
Sgraffito.
Yes. It's an art technique where the artist forcefully scratches or scrapes through a top layer of wet paint to reveal the canvas or a lower layer of color beneath it.
Ooh, wow. So they're physically carving into it.
Exactly. It is a subtractive, physically aggressive act. The artist is literally gouging the surface, so your read of violence is entirely accurate to the actual creation of the piece.
That makes so much sense.
However, a laceration doesn't necessarily mean the entity is completely broken.
I guess it could be a scar.
Exactly, and a scar is a record of healing, or at the very least, endurance.
Right.
When you combine that diagonal severance with those vertical tally marks you mentioned, the narrative shifts from sudden destruction to drawn-out survival.
Yeah.
Tally marks are a universal human symbol for counting time under duress. Think of a prisoner marking days on a cell wall.
Yeah.
It represents the sheer passage of time, leaving a physical, scraped-in mark on the subject.
For everyone listening, think about how you track a difficult period in your own life. The cups of coffee, the crossed-off days on a calendar, the number of emails you survived in a week.
We all do it.
We really do. We all have our own version of those scraped-in tally marks when we're just trying to endure our own personal static.
And the painting makes that abstract feeling of endurance entirely visible. You have a conscious being, radiating heat, fighting against an indifferent flow that is carving out its face, all while accumulating these deep scars of time.
It's incredible.
It is a complete closed-loop visual thesis on resilience.
Wait, hold on. I'd agree it's a closed loop, except for one massive detail that we actually haven't touched yet, and it completely breaks the rules we just established.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
We have spent this entire time talking about a brutal, high-contrast world, right? Warm reds and oranges doing battle against sterile black and white static.
You're looking at the bottom edge.
I am. Down at the very bottom, hiding amidst some of that white and black stippling, there is a sudden cluster of bright azure blue dots.
It's so striking.
It really is. And it's not blended in. It looks like little drips of pure blue just sitting on top of the canvas. Why introduce blue?
It's a great question.
In a piece literally titled Crimson Silhouette in Monochromatic Flow, dropping bright blue at the bottom feels like a visual jump scare in a quiet movie. It makes no sense within the ecosystem of the painting.
Which is precisely why it is there.
To mess with us.
Basically. In art theory, introducing a completely foreign element into a tightly controlled palette is called a cognitive disruption.
Cognitive disruption, okay.
Right. Think about it. The brain has spent all this time adapting to the red versus monochrome environment. We've settled into the rhythm of it.
Right. We figured out the rules.
Exactly. But by dropping in those blue dots, The artist forces a sudden system reboot.
Oh, I get it. It prevents you from getting complacent with the image.
It really does.
Yeah.
Aesthetically, it acts as a visual anchor to keep the eye from sliding right off the bottom of the canvas. But symbolically, it introduces a necessary ambiguity.
What kind of ambiguity?
Well, given the immense thermal heat we discussed with the red and orange, those blue dots could read as a sudden cooling off. Perhaps a splash of water hitting the burning core.
Or tears?
Or tears, yeah. Falling and pooling at the bottom of the frame. It could also be a meta-commentary, honestly.
Oh, so?
A deliberate, unblended drip of paint left by the artist, just to remind you that despite all this deep psychological projection we are doing, you are ultimately looking at pigment on cloth.
Just snapping us back to reality.
Exactly.
And, that sudden snap back to reality is actually reinforced by something else down in that corner.
The timestamp.
Yes, it's incredibly faint. But sitting right over the black and white lines on the bottom right is a text stamp. It just says 2020.
And that stamp fundamentally changes how we categorize this artwork.
It really does.
Up until you notice that date, you can view this as just a timeless, universal exploration of the human condition.
But 2020 anchors it to a very specific global trauma.
It grounds the abstraction in a historical reality. Think about what 2020 represented globally. Massive disruption, profound isolation, and overwhelming amounts of visual and auditory static from the news cycle.
So much static.
Right. Suddenly, the monochromatic flow isn't just abstract environmental pressure anymore. It's the specific chaotic reality of that year.
It completely recontextualizes the tally marks for me. The scraping away of time. The feeling of being a burning, isolated core surrounded by noise that you just can't control.
It makes it so personal.
It goes from being a fascinating experiment in cognitive load and color theory to a highly specific historical document of a collective feeling.
It demonstrates the power of visual art to capture the emotional truth of an era much more accurately than, say, a simple photograph or a written headline ever could.
So true. Well, let's pull all of this together. We've taken a real journey through Machu's canvas today.
We really have.
We started with the macro environment, the biological tension of that harsh monochromatic flow, acting like relentless TV static, actively pushing against and carving the edges of our subject.
A friction.
Yes. Then we zoomed in to find a vividly alive, thermal hot crimson silhouette, marked by the raw vulnerability of the canvas weave itself. We decoded the deep scraped-in scars and tally marks of a conscious entity just enduring the friction of time.
Enduring the static.
And finally, we found that sudden disruption of blue and the 2020 timestamp, which anchored this entire abstract struggle into a shared historical reality.
It's just a masterful execution of using texture, contrast, and cognitive disruption to tell a deeply human story without painting a single realistic human feature.
So, as you walk away from this deep dive, I want to turn the mirror back to you. Think about the spaces you inhabit. How do you stand amidst the monochromatic flow of your own life?
That's a great question.
That endless, indifferent static of routines, demands, and noise. Are you actively radiating your own heat, maintaining your own boundaries, and pushing back against the current? Or are you passively allowing the flow to carve your edges and dictate your shape?
I think it comes down to recognizing whether your scars are signs of passive erosion or active endurance.
Very well said. And on that note, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. Throughout this entire analysis, we've focused our attention on the right side of the painting, the jagged profile facing into the chaos, taking the absolute brunt of the black and white static.
The leading edge.
Right. But consider the unseen space to the left of the canvas, the back of the figure. We see the crimson silhouette pushing forward into the overwhelming flow. But what is pushing it from behind, what unseen off-canvas forces the silhouette walking away from, that makes plunging headfirst into freezing, chaotic static the better option. Keep that in mind the next time you find yourself wading into the noise.